Oh shit, it's your boy, Stupid Ugly Face. And it's been a while since I've posted a video, and I can't really think of a lot to do. So I was digging through my old Google documents, and because I was thinking I had these old short stories that I wanted to maybe read, which I do still want to read, but they aren't on here. I just have a physical copy of it, and I couldn't find it. So I am going to read this thing that I found because it's kind of cool, and I should expand upon it. And I can just do a simple little one take thing where that I don't have to edit at all. That I can just fucking post on the interwebs of me reading this garbage. Okay, it's not like it's interesting. It's just not fleshed out at all. Humans migrated to the first continent from the west before they were 100% anatomically human, and the first continent and western continent humans, though different in appearance depending largely on latitude, are the same species. At some point in the distant past, they share an ancestor with the species from the far lands, thousands of miles across the sea. In the west and on the first continent, humans exist as they do in the real world, but their cousins across the ocean, and more importantly, the divide, evolved very differently. The fall of the divide, which marks year zero of the New Age, came at a time roughly analogous to the real-world Middle Ages, and as its magic dissipated, they flowed into humans and the far folk alike. Most of the far folk are at least sensitive to magic, and a significant number can wield it effectively. Humans, however, are much less attuned. Approximately 10% are sensitive, and only about 10% of that 10% are suited to weave magic. Our story begins with the contact. The magic-tuned farfolk, upon the fall, became aware much more quickly than their human counterparts that it was now possible to cross the ocean, and their vessels reached the shores of the first continent only about 100 years later, when most humans weren't even aware yet of their existence, the fall, or anything magical. Magic-attuned humans who knew intuitively that something was different than before were still misunderstood, feared, and often hunted. The farfolk are anatomically similar to humans, but are usually larger, stronger, and more aggressive. Some have bony protrusions, often from the head, taking the form of horns. They have a poison gland in their throats, which makes their saliva toxic to most other animals, and use it to coat the tips of their weapons. Humans are somewhat resistant to its effects, and it usually only kills the extremely old, extremely young, or immunocompromised, but it does often induce a sickness that takes 1 or 2 weeks to get over. The first fleet of 4 Farfolk boats, carrying about 130, landed in the north of the continent and was discovered by a band of hunters from a forest tribe. They kept their distance, but the magic-sensitive Farfolk sensed among them a magic user, and we sniffed out the group, attempting to hide in the woods. 2 managed to escape, but the rest were quickly killed by the raiders, who only lost one of their own number. They set up camp and sent one boat back with a skeleton crew to tell their leaders what had been found. The real invasion began about a year later. That's, like, how old is this? Oh, last edit January 30th, 2017, so not that old. I really should have started doing this kind of shit and like writing this shit out actually like a long time ago. It would have been real good. I'm at 3 minutes. I'm just gonna like read more shit from this. Ooh, I kind of want to read a story called Gardens that I wrote in college very insistently and very incompetently. I was just like dead set that it was going to be like fucking amazing and shit, and it's just weird and like obtuse and not good. Yeah, there's not a lot other in here. This is untitled document. It just says doctor. Ooh, thoughts 128. This is from just last year. Okay, no, I read that. That's whatever. Ooh, Waltar, often called the Pious. I wrote a fair amount here. This is some D&D shit. Human paladin, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, light-skinned, 6'7", 280 pounds. Waltar was born the third son of a noble and powerful family with much influence over a great deal of a northern kingdom, but as a youth he disliked nearly every aspect of his ever-structured life. He learned to sword fight and shoot a bow, he learned how to smile in a man's face as he stabbed him in the back, and he learned many family histories. His favorite was that of his great-uncle Ulfric, who had dishonored the family by wandering off to foreign lands and becoming a well-known, unscrupulous sellsword. So when he was 14, he decided to finally live up to his great-uncle's legacy and fled the family home with a flint and tinder, a pot, a few scraps of food, a short bow, and 30 arrows. The first day he went to the home of a village boy he had been friendly with on the odd occasion he had been allowed outside, as it were. He asked the boy named Jael if there was anything that might be done to help him, or at least hide him for a while. He was granted access to the family's tiny attic for the night and slept there, even as he heard the commotion outside, undoubtedly over his disappearance. The next morning, Jill returned and told him that it wasn't yet safe to come outside, so he hid there for the next 24 hours until finally Jill returned again and bid him go as quickly as possible. He fled now into the wilderness, where he lived for the next 2 years, hunting and fishing and occasionally sneaking into a village and pilfering what he could. He had been going south the entire time, and eventually, somewhere in the tropics far from home, he smelled the ocean and decided to stop. He had always made it a habit to stay around villages, and as much as he could, so he could catch the differences in the way they spoke and not sound utterly northern when he emerged. And when he did emerge, he was quite the disheveled sight to the dark-skinned, mostly elvish populace. Neat. I don't know where the camera went. I don't think I wandered too far.